Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Angular Q&A with Alex and Brandon from the NgRx team. Second Q&A from the Angular community on Discord. I would love to start out with introducing the panel who's sitting next to me virtually, which is Emma. Emma, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks a lot for joining us. And the guests today are Alex and Brandon. Thanks a lot for being here, guys.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Normally in a situation like this, we can do a big introductory round. I think most people know you, but let's just get over it, do the official part. So Brandon, why don't you start doing a quick intro, then Alex, then Emma. Work all the way back.
Yeah, so as said in the chat room, I am Brandon. If you follow that meme on Twitter. But yeah, Brandon Roberts. I work at Narwhal. Also one of the members on the NgRx project.
Hey, so I'm Alex.
Cool.
Yeah, I recently joined Cisco in the principal UI architect role. And yeah, I'm also part of the NgRx and really excited about the, adoption and health of the project. So keeping it going. Emma?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then I'm Emma Tversky, and I am on the developer relations team for Angular at Google. So excited to learn about NgRx from these two.
Awesome. Yep. The guys above. So what we did, we built some, no, we didn't build, but we have some position to put the questions in. We got quite a bit of questions. We picked up the first 10 highest voted questions. Everybody in the chat, welcome here. We don't have time to say hi to everybody, but it's getting busy already. So that's super excited to see here. We have a lot of familiar faces: Serkan, Lars, Mike Hartington, Jeffrey, Chow, Kate Sky. Well, a ton of people from the community. And yeah, the Discord has grown quite a bit over the last month. We started in the last week of August. In the first month, we had 5,000 members. In the first 4 months, we had 5,000 members. And yesterday, we reached 5,900 members. So we're probably going to close in on 6,000 members in January, which is, I think, an amazing achievement. And there's a lot of great people there. There's interesting discussion all day. Every day when I wake up, there's like 30 channels that have chats in them that I'm going through and checking it out. So discord.gg/Angular. If you haven't been there, just come along. Last thing I want to mention before we dive in, if you want us to invite a guest, let us know. We'll be sending out a survey afterwards. So this idea of having NgRx team was directly from the community based on the survey. So we're pretty interested in what you all think, how we can improve these kind of things. And I think without further ado, Emma, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Let's take the first question. And I think Alex and Brandon, you between each other, you can decide who's gonna pick the question, or right?
Yeah. We'll go in a way.
I think we can.
Oops. Sorry. Is my
go ahead.
audio delayed? No. Okay. Yeah, we'll go with Brandon. We'll probably most of the questions both of us we'll take a little stab at, but.
Yeah, one of the things I think interesting, as pretty much of a context, what I know from the NgRx core team is that every member of the core team has pretty much their own ideas on how to properly do certain things. So you're not, by definition, agreeing everybody with all their same. So this must be interesting stuff. So I'm also don't be shy to say like what he says is wrong. We have room for that.
So you just brought us on here.
I think we can go with the first question.
Okay, so the first question comes from Puppeteer, and it is, what guidance do you have on recognizing when an application is either too simple to justify using NgRx or has grown beyond that point that retrofitting it with state management makes sense? It's kind of a long one.
Yeah. Brandon?
Sure, I can take a stab at this one. Either if if you're trying to think about whether your application is too simple for NgRx, the first thing I would tell you to look at is the sharing principle that we have in our docs, which is really all about shared state, which is where NgRx traditionally, like the global store, is meant to be used. If you have a lot of shared data that's used in a lot of places, it gets changed by a lot of different events or actions in your, or events or things happening in your application. It's being like reused in a lot of places, and you need to have it stored or rehydrated, you know, in a consistent way, and also to have a consistent pattern that you would have if you want to have a more consistent pattern, large, depending on the size of your app. So, as far as being too simple, it depends on what your definition of simple is. I always say don't throw NgRx at a to-do app, because you're gonna immediately feel the brunt of the things that you have to do, because it's just not meant for something like that. But as your application grows and you have a lot more shared information, then that's at least the breaking point of where you want to at least look at using that, or, you know, adding some type of centralized place for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add one more thing about retrofitting it into an existing app. And I think once you get to a certain point, if you've, I think like at a high level, if you've ever gotten into the point where you've entered like service spaghetti amongst a lot of shared things, then that's probably at the point that you want to try to introduce it to centralize some of those changes and kind of decouple those changes from the services themselves.
Yeah, that's, I'll add a few things there. And as you said, we have our own things that we have opinions on. It's great. So from my perspective, like, I love Angular. Right? I think it's fantastic framework, has all the batteries included and all the good things. I do have a strong opinion that it is missing the state management parts. Yes, we do have services, but frequently that's not enough, and it can get you far enough, but then later you'll still have some other problems. So within NgRx, so now when we say NgRx, there's actually two now libraries, state management libraries, that we have within it. One is the store. That's what a lot of people refer to NgRx to, you know, as like say NgRx, meaning a store. And then there's the component store as well, right? The component store means to be more localized and basically a replacement for your, you know, services with behavior subject approach. So that allows you to have a reactive state even on the small scale. So if you think like, oh, I don't need global state management, fine. Start with a little one, right? Start with a local store. And you might, you know, just not even go to the larger one depending on your needs. And we try to kind of identify the use cases of both of them in the NgRx.io site, where in the component store we have a comparison between global state management library, like the store, and the local one. So that's where it's like sometimes it could be not too simple. It's like now we cover all the spectrum. And the larger you go, most likely you'll start to have even both of these libraries, because again, each one of them is responsible for his own thing. As to the retrofitting part, one more thing. One great identifier is that if you need the state management or not, if you're writing tests and your tests become really complicated, you have a lot of things to inject and things like that. So that means you need to review some of your architecture. And actually, NgRx, both local store and global store, can help you address some of your architectural decisions. Writing tests should not be hard. You know, if you're writing tests and it's really, really hard and takes a lot of things to write the test properly, that's one of the signals that you have too many things. If you have like 15 services injected in your components, that's probably too much, right? So all of these things point you into the direction that, hey, maybe you should reconsider how you approach the whole thing, the whole state thing. And the whole state thing, it shouldn't be just like an afterthought, like, oh, somehow I'll get the data to the component. It should be really upfront when you work on your application. It should be next to how do I structure my component tree, right? Which components do I need? And the second thing would be, what's the state, where does it live, and how it flows through my application. Like that should be not the afterthought. So at that point, you can start retrofitting. You can start with a small one. If you identify things that are global, push it to the global store. Like I love to have my router things in the global store. That's the first thing I put in my global one, like all my router state. So those are things from my perspective. I think this is quite a popular question, so we kind of needed to have a little bit more time for it because a lot of people want to know this, and there's a lot of opinions about this. So I hope you don't mind that we took a little bit more time for this one.
This is the first time I've gotten this question. I don't know what you're talking about.
Awesome.
I think
we can then move on with the second one. Yeah, go ahead, Emma. Yep.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to be opinionated. I see in the chat people are talking about service soup versus service spaghetti. So I like that. Okay, so the next question is from AutoZoom, and it's NgRx Data seems quite stale lately. Is it going to be further developed? Yeah, what's up with NgRx Data?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So I guess for those of you who don't know, NgRx Data is like a layer on top of the NgRx Store effects and entity library that gives you a way to create services that kind of encapsulate all that machinery that some people want to hide away in NgRx. And NgRx Data is still being maintained. We're mainly focusing on bug fixes now. Like we have a small team, and like we use more of the things that we focus on are the things that we use more often. But we're still maintaining NgRx Data and with, like I said, bug fixes and looking for contributions from the community. So if you want to help contribute to NgRx Data, we're always open to do that. So we already have some people in our issues that are looking to contribute. Like I said, people are still doing this like in free time and everything. So as we get time to look at those, we'll help and add more things to NgRx Data. The biggest thing I've seen is with NgRx Data is just a little more extensibility, I think, which in regards to like configuring like endpoints and things that it handles. So for the most part, NgRx Data is a good solid library, but it just needs a few tweaks to add a little bit more flexibility. So that's what we're look at adding in the future.
Yeah, I'll add the quick one. So from my perspective, I mean, I've been at Google for like 7 years now, just left. So I never used and I never needed NgRx Data for my own things, for example. And this is, again, being volunteers on the team. Again, everybody has their own jobs that we do. We try to use the things that we built as well, right? So for example, I never had a chance to use NgRx Data because we have a different way to generate things at Google, the services, all the DTOs and all the other things. So a lot of what NgRx Data was provided for me was not necessary. Now it's a different story. I'll probably be taking a look at things. But again, this also, we need to use this as well. So if somebody has a strong contributions and uses it heavily and has some certain opinions, we definitely welcome this. We do have a little bit of a process, so we're trying to come to this more like thoughtfully. So if you have a kind of a plan that you want to touch on a few things and not just fix a few bugs, we're trying to ask to get more like a little bit of design doc, which Brandon has a template for, and things like that. So we are approaching to refactorings like this or updates like this more like thoughtfully, right?
Yep.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Almost like a RFC or like a design document for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been my favorite part of moving to Angular is open source contributions. Like if you see an issue, you can fix it. Okay, our next question is from Lars, and it is, what are the future plans for NgRx Component?
Alex, why don't you take this one first, or either I can do it.
Sure, I can start, and then you can go ahead. So I guess we could have a few opinions on this. So NgRx Component, what we initially thought about it, how we initially had implementation, it's not what we actually ended up doing. So for the NgRx Component, we probably, it's still very highly experimental feature, and I couldn't stress it more enough. If you're using it in production, I'd probably say, hold on a second on that. So it's very highly experimental. To the point where we at certain point even deliberated maybe we should remove it altogether. For now, we'll keep it in. We plan to address some of the issues that are there, or at least to minimize them. And yeah, so it's basically experimental / maintenance, and until we have better understanding of where the whole zoneless movement is moving from the Angular team and all that, we'll keep it experimental. And I understand it's like, decorators are experimentals featured in TypeScript, please don't use it kind of thing, but we don't use it. So it falls even stronger than that, right? Like really, please, like, it's fine to play around with this, but it's fine in your local app, whatever you want to do. If you're in a big company using it in production, hold on a second, don't use that yet. But that's how I see the future of Component. We might have a whole different approach to zoneless altogether once we get to that need. Personally, I don't feel zone is a huge problem. At least in many of the applications, there are a lot more issues that need to be addressed first before we get to the zoneless or any of that stuff. So, but I'm sure Brendan has his own thoughts about this.
Yeah, I agree with what you said. I would still consider the package to be experimental. It was even experimental when we released it, and because, like I said, zoneless, in my opinion, is a ways off. I mean, it's on the roadmap for Angular, but it's in the a long list of other things that they're working on. So I think once there is more clarity from the Angular team, then we'll take another look at what NgRx Component is, or what it could be in the context of zoneless applications. Because as it is today, zones is just something that you need, and we would rather focus on the things that help you build reactive applications within that context right now. And NgRx Component is something that is something forward-looking, but we're not ready to commit a lot of time to it, just because you'd have to do a lot of extra things to try to make that work. And that segment of people who are trying to build completely zoneless applications, I think is few and far between. So if like I said, if people are wanting to use it, and we're still just maintaining it right now, like I said, small bug fixes, things like that, but we won't make any big sweeping changes to it in the near future.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay, the next question is from one of us, and it is, if backwards compatibility was not an issue, what would be something you would change about NgRx? So kind of a what if world.
What would we change? What would we change if there was no backwards compatibility? Okay, so inside baseball here, we had thought about repackaging all the libraries under a more general NgRx state scope, or a package name, and kind of rolling things under that. So like combining storing effects under one library to kind of give you a single, as far as state management and side effects library. I know that idea was kicked around as far as something that we talked about doing if backwards compatibility wasn't a thing. But as far as I can remember, I think that's probably like the biggest change that we had talked about, just to kind of solidify the idea around the state management part of NgRx, to allow us to kind of branch off into other areas.
Yep, that's a big one actually, because we wanted to reconsider, for example, and have a selector altogether, its own kind of sub-library within NgRx. And there are other things. For example, we want to use, like, Component Store is completely independent library right now, right? But what if you want to use entities, NgRx entities with this? And right now, if you bring NgRx entities, you kind of need to bring NgRx Store as well, even though you won't be using much of it, right? But you'll be using create selector that's coming from there, even internally. So those things are like, that would be probably great to have a create selector as its own kind of package that we can package things more like nicer. So that's the first thing. Secondly, our modules and APIs kind of grew sometimes a little bit too much. So we'd like to clean it up really. And again, but then you run into somebody who started using this injection token that could have been even exposed by accident, really, right? And being, I used to maintain this library at Google. It's almost guaranteed that somebody will get one of those things for sure, right? And then you're like, how do I unravel all of this? So I don't want to break a lot of projects with this as well. And the other things like, really deprecating decorator, like effect decorator, right? Completely removing it. That would be, I would really want to. And we are on the path to do that, right? It's been deprecated for now. We are still having it as V11 that will be coming out shortly. But we are planning to get rid of it in V12. But again, the projects that still have the effect decorator, they'll be really hard to migrate, I think. Well, so we already had a lot of time to deprecate it, but yeah. So those are the things, I think.
Yeah, I think those all make total sense. Again, that's what if world, right?
Once you add something to the public API, it's practically there forever when somebody starts using it. So unless you have some like alternative to replace it with, it's kind of hard to move away from those things.
And that's the biggest difference if you are developing your own internal kind of library that the customers and you see who's accessing what, so you can refactor all of them, versus to have something like NgRx that's used in every fifth application worldwide, right? It's widely popular. So touching any APIs or even introducing new ones have to be a slow process, right? So it is a slow process for a good reason, right? Because, first of all, it's time. And secondly, if we do something, you got to be thoughtful. So it's really hard to, do it just like, oh, let's just approve everybody's PRs and just let, everybody, whatever everybody wants to pull in, just get all in, it'll be fine, because I'm sure it fixes somebody's problems. It could fix somebody's problems, but then it could make library unmaintainable in the long run. So some of the things sometimes move slow in NgRx, and for the good reason as well.
Yeah, makes total sense. Okay. We'll move on to the next question. Oh, we're halfway through. Okay. This question comes from Chow, and it's, many people are still confused / hesitant to try out NgRx Component Store because it has NgRx scope in its name. The confusion stems from potential boilerplate with NgRx. Can we get a clarification from the core team on this?
I guess I'll take a stab at this. So this was actually one of the early discussions we had within NgRx team and within the Firebase team, which I was part of, because that's where Component Store originally, was conceived over a year ago, actually now almost a year and a half ago. How do we, because we know that it's a good thing to be included, and we wanted to make it basically a complete picture of state now for the entire NgRx. So there's a store and there's a component store. They can coexist, each solve their own purposes. So they wanted to bring the entire state management story together. At the same time, it is the educational part to say, hey, component store is literally a single file if you want to look at the sources. It's a single file of 350 lines of code, plus a few custom operators on the side that you can use or can avoid. So it literally is so simple, right? And there's no roadblocks to adopt this. You can completely use it separately. So I agree, but I think the trade-off and the benefit, once they were evaluated, it kind of made sense to include it as a library, and through the education go through this and and educate that, hey, this is a separate thing, but it completes the picture. And looking at the downloads for Component Store, we released it in August with the version 10. The adoption's been really great. It's going exponential ever since we launched it. I think we're getting to 15,000 weekly downloads, I think, at this point. Like, it's going really, really fast. So I'm happy that it goes that way. I'm happy to see some of the contributions to it as well. Marco did fantastic. He's in chat as well. Phenomenal contributions. I was really amazed of them. And then we had a lot of good bugs open for this. Some of the corner cases that we missed. And we had, those fixes as the minor versions as well. So again, thank you for everybody who's using it, who's contributing, who's filing backs against this. Yeah, I think it's going great with this. So at the end, I think the NgRx having NgRx scope in its name was a net positive.
Yep.
Brandon, do you want to add something or?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you said. When we talked about this, just had our discussions about it internally, I think I said the same thing, was that some people aren't going to use this just because it has NgRx in the name, and they think they're going to have to sprinkle a lot of boilerplate. Yes, I said it. I can do it in their app to be able to use Component Store, which is not the case. And we just have to keep putting that out there, that it's a completely separate standalone library that you can use without even having the global NgRx store at all. So, and I think a lot more users are realizing that, because of you can get a lot of the power that you have with NgRx store, at a smaller, more isolated level. If you still get some form of selectors and side effects and state management there. So it's definitely been received well, I think, and like as Alex said. But yeah, like the naming, people just immediately associate it. If it's NgRx, then that means it must have something to do with the Redux pattern, but that's definitely not the case with Component Store.
Awesome. Yeah, I know. I really love it, and a lot of people who I work with too. So definitely add some extra tool to the box. And I hate to say it, but I kind of got rid of the global store by now, just replacing it piece by piece. But yeah, I really like it.
And I predicted that would happen. I said that once we put this out here, there's going to be a segment of people that are just going to go directly to that, because you could envision an application where that's all you have, and the good thing about it is, like, it can scale up to a global state or global stores if you want to use it in that way. But like I said, the purpose of it was so that it's more component driven, component focused. But yeah, it definitely scales up also.
Yeah, awesome.
But you still need a little bit of boilerplate in your life. I'm just going to keep saying it.
Makes sense to me. So if you start a new application right now, are you using Component Store? That's my interlude question for the next one.
I'll go first. Yes, because I think that we have, like Alex said, we have a clear picture of both use cases. If you want to have some reactive state or manage that reactive state within your component, you can use that with Component Store. And if you need something where you need something more indirect, and a lot of that, like I said, that shared data that needs to be managed somewhere else, then you can eventually move on to the global store. But I'm like in this mode where I'm trying to find the right balance of how you use both of them. If you ever get to that point. But yeah, I start with components. I say start with Component Store, and then see, and then you can, if you have identified the large global shared things, then you could use those also. But component store will suit a lot of people's use cases, I think.
Cool. Okay. I think that's a good interlude to the next question, also from Chow. And it is, one of the main selling points of NgRx Store, the global store, is that it has integration with the Redux dev tools to enable better debugging experiences. Can we expect some shape, form of debugger or debugging helpers from NgRx Component Store? For example, hooks like before update, after update to hook a logger into the store, or integration directly with Redux dev tools?
I can start on this while my connection jumps up. It's highly beneficial for global.
Did we lose Alex?
Yeah, I think his internet had to take a break, but I'll try to answer, and then if he comes back, then we'll pick up from there. Yeah, so the dev tools for the NgRx Store dev tools are meant to be used in the context of Redux. Sorry, Alex, you were breaking up there. Yeah, the dev tools themselves are pretty much just tied to the NgRx Store. So we couldn't connect the two without like coupling the NgRx Store, coupling Component Store to the NgRx Store, and want to maintain that independence there between those two libraries. I'm pretty sure there's some ways you could connect the two things, but that'd be something that you'd have to do on your, as a part of your own, if you wanted to make like an extension of it or something like that, that has the dispatching underneath so that you can see it in the Redux dev tools. That'd be something that you'd have to do in user land, but we don't have any plans to connect store dev tools to the component store because we want to keep it light, keep it thin, and keep it independent of the global store, which is like one of its main selling points. So I think that's where we are.
Awesome. I think actually Chow asking the question build a prototype of what it would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I really like about the component store is what Alex already mentioned. It's one file. So if you're interested in hacking it or debugging it, you can just copy over the file from the repo, compile it locally in your app, and you can just tweak whatever the F you want. And that's like super powerful because you can just add like console logs wherever you want. And yeah, that's pretty nice. Alex came back here. Let me put you back at where you were, and let me reorganize this. So cool, nothing happened.
It's like we're doing like the Brady Bunch thing here. We're just like moving squares around.
Yeah. So Alex, you fell off for a little bit, but Brandon took the question. I'm not sure if you want to add something that's probably similar. I'm not sure if Alex is still around though.
Cool.
I hope I'm around. Am
yeah,
I not?
It looks like you are right now.
Okay, for now. I switched to my phone connection now because I don't know, the internet. It has this up and down, starts jumping, so it's like, yeah.
Happens to all of us, Alex.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, so okay, let's move on with the next one.
Cool. Okay. The next one is a short question from Lars, and it is, will NgRx Forms ever happen?
This is a short and a loaded question because people have been asking this one for years, I believe, at this point. Maybe. I think that's still still our stance on it today. As you mentioned before, it's NgRx still today is a volunteer project, and we put a lot of thought and time into the packages that we want to release and the things that we're going to have to maintain, like in the long run. So NgRx Forms would be a big undertaking that would take a lot of work and effort. And so if we get to a point where we can do that, then we'll visit it at that point. But for now, I think it's still a glimmer in the eye of our community that they would like to see us do. We've had some discussions about it and talks about it, but we haven't solidified any plans to do it at this particular moment.
Yeah. And yeah, if you want, you can join the NgRx Discord. So it's discord.gg/NgRx. There is the channel for discussing NgRx Forms. We need kind of somebody who wants to champion this, basically. Is again, it's if somebody's trying to solve the problem, then we can do it. And I think now we have a very good base for, say, NgRx Forms, with the component store being a perfect core, reactive core for any of this, and perfect reactive container for this state. So it could happen. It could make it somewhat, but we still need the proper designs, evaluations of current libraries. What are we missing? What are we missing from Angular Forms, for example, so we can swap it out. So all of these things we need to carefully analyze, address. It can't be just like, oh, I just have validation, I just throw it in together and just submit it. It doesn't work that way, right? If we wanted to have a proper, we need to have a proper process for that, starting with the design doc, proper evaluation, and things like that. And what are we trying to solve as well? So all of this is important. And if somebody wants to volunteer, I know there's a lot of people who had some interest in this. Nobody had a very strong commitment to this. If somebody wants to do this, we are open, right, Brendan?
Yep. We're always, I guess that goes without saying, but we're always, looking for contributors and people to help out with the project. But like I said, it's more of part of it is we have to go through the process of designing it, and then the other half is actually like executing and maintaining after that. So we don't want to just throw something out there and then it not be well supported.
I think this also kind of ties in with the other things we mentioned. Like if you publish something, you make it public, you will now have to support it. So you now have to keep loving it till the end of times until you can deprecate it, and that can take years. So yeah, it makes total sense to be selective.
Yeah, sounds good. I know we had that Discord up on the screen, so if you're interested. Oh, I'm not good at the mirroring. It was over here. Let's see. Okay, moving on to the next question. Yeah, there you go. I don't know. I won't try. Let's see. From Yair Cohen, our next question is, how can someone contribute to NgRx or Angular, NgRx Angular, if they don't have any particular issue themselves, but they want to contribute?
Cool. So I guess this one will be a dual question. We can answer, and Emma can answer too. As far as NgRx, we always have needs for docs and tests and examples and things like that. For the documentation, I would say that's probably the lowest barrier of entry, is contributing to the docs. But I mean, you can contribute to most parts of NgRx. It just depends on what things are you trying to change? Like the core of NgRx is solid. So if you want to make a big sweeping change to that, then we would have to have a discussion about that first. Contributing to docs is less, takes less effort for someone to do. So we would definitely need some, or just want to help you, guide you along if you're looking to contribute in that area. I think, like we mentioned before, NgRx Data and NgRx Component, if there are issues with those that you would want to take on, you can look and see what issues are out there now and just comment on those particular issues that you want to contribute to those. And then we'll assign you that issue. And then if you work that and then open a PR for it, then we'll review it and we'll try to get it in. So those are the ways you can contribute, at least from our point of view, but we're always looking for contributors to join, whether it be a big contribution or a small one. So.
Yeah, and just to add to that a little bit, if you want to do something major, right, you want to add, be prepared to create a little bit of like a technical design doc for this, explaining the problem, what the objective is. If it's a smaller thing, be prepared to, or at least go ahead and save everybody some time. When you open this issue, try to explain crystal clear what the objective is. If it's a smaller one, right? What are we trying to solve? How can we solve this before you do the implementation even? That would help us understand what the problem you're trying to solve. Is this, maybe we have other solutions for it. Maybe we have something else. Maybe we have other plans for it as well. I've seen a number of contributions that do follow this pattern of, providing the more context of what they're trying to change, or why, and how it can be beneficial. And we accepted those. And again, I'll point to Marco, who added a number of things to the component store like that, with the patch API and things like that, or something that I was looking personally for, but never had time to get to, where you can, for example, create the mock store, basically just new it without needing to set up the module for it, without module test bat, configure modules kind of things. So, those are great examples, and smaller doc is good enough. If you want to have a big changes, prepare to have a bigger doc, and we have templates for that too. And also be ready that we love contributions, but be prepared that it's not going to be happening like overnight, right? That it's not like every day we're really on it. And even though all three of us try to be present there, Tim, Brandon actually doing a lot of great work over the last years. But yeah, be prepared for a slower process.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess I'll answer from the Angular standpoint. So I threw 2 links in the YouTube chat. The first is going to be sort of the Angular IO doc on how to get started contributing. So that's a great place to go to start. If it's your first open source contribution, there's definitely a different process than maybe if you are an engineer in a private team with a private repo. So there's some good documentation on how to learn how to do that. And then the other thing I'll point people to is the second link is our issues that are tagged with a specific tag that is good first issue. So we have specific issues out there that if you want to open a PR, maybe like something really small, like a typo in documentation or something like that, that's a great way to at least learn the process of the PR process that you'd have to go through to merge something into Angular. And then there's some issues out there of like small fixes or things that we have identified are a good first issue to sort of undertake once you want to start contributing. So those are some good places to start. And then also talking to people in the community, right? Like the Discord community would be a great place to ask. There's plenty of other people who have contributed and know that process and would love to help you get onboarded if that's something you're interested in doing. It's definitely very... I don't know. I think it's rewarding to have like a public contribution. So if it's interesting to you, definitely try it out.
I think the NgRx platform repo, github.com/NgRx/platform also has the good first issue stuff, right? So you mark the issues that are, super nice. I think this is very nice. And I can share a little thing that we have been thinking about. We are planning about doing open source contribution days where we invite people from the community actually merging in their first contribution, and we will be definitely looking at these good first issues. But this is something that we'll announce officially later on. But this is something to help people because it does really feel good to make your first contribution. It does feel good to give back. And I think a lot of people think you have to be a brilliant coder in order to be able to participate, and that's not true. Even somebody like myself can contribute to open source, and I'm not a brilliant coder. So don't be shy there.
Hey, really, Bob? Is what you did? Is what you're doing? The stuff you crank out. Come on now.
Everybody can contribute, and even the small ones are welcome. So let's settle on that one, right?
Okay.
For
Awesome.
sure. Okay. Oh, the only other thing I'll add is the Angular team has been releasing more RFCs, which are requests for comment. So if you're not in a place where you want to open your first PR, that's another really great place is if you comment. Those are like specifically calls to the community to like tell us your story of how you think this would interact with your stuff. So those are other great places to contribute to the framework, is giving feedback in places like that. And with that, the next question is from, oh, I like this username, the spiciest dev asked, between global store and component store, where do you personally draw the line of ownership regarding a component's state?
I can go, I guess. So the first thing is I start asking myself, where do I need the state? Do I need it application-wide, or do I need it in specific areas, right? And this is where we identify component store to be like shining really brightly. This is either state of the common component kind of thing that you reuse everywhere, or if it's part of the state of a particular thing of a particular space within the application that you would want to clean up once you navigate from it, right? So it doesn't need to leave the life cycle of the application. You want to really tie it up to the life cycle of the component and clean it up whenever it's done. So that's how I try to see it first. And if I can identify there, then I can drill down and if I need one common component or a component store, or I need like a few, could it be at different levels? So component store definitely needs a little bit more designing of your state flows up front. Global store allows you to do it. You can a little bit defer it further because you can always create new effects and things like that would be in the global scope. So, and again, in the docs, I try to identify those things. I know we have also the use cases that we always want to finish. But there are some, I've done some talks already, even, I don't know if the Enterprise no, not the other ones. I think NG Poland had a few of those, but the docs should also have that information. If there's something missing, let us know. We'll try to add that. Brendan, do you want to take a stab at that?
No, I didn't have anything to add there. I think that, yeah, we talked about the Sherry principle when we talked about like where component store fits. So I think if you look at those two things, that will give you a good guidance on whether you want to put something in the global one versus the local one.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Okay. And then our 10th question, sort of pivoting away from component store, I know that's been a theme today, is from Derek Kite, and it's, would create selectors benefit from having the equivalent of filter where it doesn't emit a value under a set condition?
That's a good one because in generally store with the create selectors, it always has a state. So that's why we provide initial state. So it's not really lazy. In a component store, we allow state to be lazy. So for example, you could have it missing and not emitted yet. You can initialize it lazily later on.
Oh no.
So he just saw something off screen and he had to tend to it right now.
Yeah.
Let's see if he comes back in a second. If not, then I'll throw an answer in there.
With the
this is super frustrating when it happens. I had it all the time.
Yeah.
Previous connection. I think when it happens, everybody's like, am I dropping out or is it somebody else?
That's always the first thing you say is it me or is it them?
Yeah, here he's.
I'm back, hopefully for good.
Back.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
You
Sorry.
another stab at that one?
Yeah, so we typically treat the global store as basically as a behavior subject. So you are easily relying that it will always emit something. It always has this initial state. So it's almost like a built-in assumption at that point, right? So if you want to create the filter, I don't know if we can build it in, or we want to build it in. I mean, you can probably add it as an operator after this, where more localized, and you are more aware of how you want to treat the incoming data, and filter certain things. So you can technically do this at the within the RxJS pipe. So I don't know. What do you think? I know we're running into this situation myself where sometimes I don't want to have initial state, but yeah, I'm not sure in this case.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, if I can add a little bit to that, I don't think that we would add this at the create selector level, just because create selector is meant to be pure. It's not meant to filter any data, or like you're in charge of manipulating whatever comes out of the selector. So I would say if you had a common use case, and I've done this also, where let's say you're using the filter over to something that comes out of selector repeatedly, then I would look at creating like a custom operator that wraps that selector and like a filter together, and then use that operator on the store, as opposed to maybe accessing that or trying to add a filter to that create selector, or the function returned by create selector directly. So you can since you can create your own operators, you can kind of compose your own in that way and reuse that, as opposed to trying to, because I think it would be a little more complex to try to do that at the create selector level, because you have your initial value, and then like you would, if I'm just thinking out loud, maybe you would always have to have your initial value as null, and then if for some reason you want to actually guard against null values, then how do you handle those? So I think it will make like the API more complex, or a little more surprising, if we were to try to add some kind of filtering mechanism to that.
Well, I think the short answer to this question is no. If you want something like this, you probably have to do it yourself.
Yeah,
that's the nice answer to it. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think a similar thing can be said to create selector accepting parameters. I think that's another discussion that is often there. Like, is this good practice or bad practice? And yeah, I think kind of depends. But I think that's a more clear answer that goes more in line with always having a value being embedded.
Mm-hmm. I would say lean into RxJS for where create selector doesn't fulfill that need there.
Yeah, that was a non-Canadian answer. That's right, Lars. Yeah, and we have to be cautious about API growing more and more, right? Especially if it is something not quite as useful. If we're building in the assumption, right, and then it kind of builds into your mental model that, hey, whenever I use the select, I always get a value, regardless of what it is. It could be initial, or it could be whatever the value later on was added. But I always get it's very easy to work with it that way, right? You don't have to dig into what the create selector actually does, right? You can assume it brings you the value immediately. And I think, breaking some of those assumptions would be also harder to work with this thing. So you can always pipe and filter if you really need to, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. I think with that, we are through our official questions, or official, I don't want to call it too official, but the list we pre-selected, basically the 10 most voted. I don't think we have any real questions in the chat today, so we have a few more. Everything later on will be available in the Angular community. I'll link it in the description below, so you can just click it through. But I think we can just take on maybe one or two more, and then call it a day.
Yeah, some of them will be quick of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can be rapid fire. Okay,
yeah.
I'll just go with the next one. So from Derek Kite, did I see a rewrite of router store in process? What improvements will we see?
I'll do a quick one. So there's no rewrite. It was identified that the rewrite would be beneficial. The current structure suffers a few things. From the API perspective, we fixed the issues that were happening with the router store. So there's no rewrite planned from us officially. If anybody wants to volunteer and do the proper design doc and all the other things for it, happy to see that.
Cool.
Next question.
Okay. From Yum. Oh, do you want to add to that, Brandon?
No, I'm good.
Okay, cool.
We'll do the
Then
rapid fire.
from Yum Yums, how is progress on the reactive router coming? Have you settled on a name?
We have not settled on a name. If you've been following me on Twitter, me and Miro have released the Angular component router, which today lives under that umbrella, which is a separate thing from NgRx itself. So we don't have a plan, at least today, to add that to NgRx right now. So we'd have to have a discussion about at some point if that were to happen. But right now it's under @angular-component/router. I think you should check it out. And we, like I said, and part of that is me, like personally, I wanted to, I think, like I said, I think part of it is people are intimidated by contributing to NgRx. So I went a different path on trying to get that package together so that it would be more approachable to more developers. And, but like I said, people like the NgRx brand and it's there, it's a thing. So I want people to try it out so we can iterate on it some more. But yeah, that's where it is right now.
Cool. And then maybe one more.
Yeah.
And this one's from Lars, who we know is in the chat. And it is it technically possible to deprecate Switchcase Reducers?
No. So create reducer is a more convenient wrap around this, but that's how they work inside anyway, right? So it's not possible to deprecate this. It's probably easier to use create reducer, but yeah, and it's not even something that we provide, right? It's just like you write your own function that has all those case statements. So we provide a wrapper. But here's your non-Canadian answer. No.
I still use Switchcase Reducers, at least currently, what I'm working on now. So there has been a place to have those create reducer and Switchcase Reducers together when you need to, work outside of action creators. So I still use them today, and I don't want to see them deprecated. So because those are just JavaScript things. So let them live on. Let them be great, Lars. Stop hating on Switchcase Reducers.
Get rid of effects that are with the effect decorator. Yeah, use create effect for that. But Switchcase, I mean, yeah. No. I personally don't use that much now. I use create reducer always now, but they're there. It's not part of the even API that we provide.
I think if we can sum anything up from this last hour, it's if you publish something in the wild, you gotta maintain it. And this is definitely also the case for these Switchcase reducers. You might have a nice thing on top of it, but it still needs to be there. So yeah.
Yeah, I will say that create reducer.
And with that, I mean,
in that way. Sorry, I jumped in there real quick. Create reducer is extendable in that way that I know Tim has built some stuff with Emmer on top of it. But if you wanted to build something on top of it, you could, but we have no plan to deprecate them, or we can't, so we're not going to.
Very good. Thank you so much for being here. I think this was super interesting. You answered a lot of great questions, and yeah, it was great to have you here. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Alex. And I'm pretty sure that if anybody has questions, you can go into the Angular Discord and ask it there, or in the NgRx Discord, which we just linked down below. I can't see the link anymore, but that was there. And thank you so much, Emma, for being here and being part of the panel. It was great having you being part of this, and the cat. We saw the cat passing by as well. So super nice. And last but not least, thanks to all our members for making our community awesome. This community wouldn't be as great without all of you. The ones who ask questions and the ones who are lurking around, just reading along, you're all very valuable to us. So thank you all so much. Thanks, everybody. And I hope to see you very soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Thanks.